In this video, we'll discuss the features on Jason Wilson's face that point to a compassionate nature, as well as metrics that point to the cultivation of family and community. Enjoy. In today's face reading, we are looking at Jason Wilson. Now, Jason Wilson is an author. He runs, I believe, a martial arts school as well. And I'm not sure where his location actually is. I know it's not in California. Pretty sure it's not in California. And if it is, my mistake. But he does a lot of work with the community, like his local community, and he's really focused on kind of rebranding masculinity to a degree. What does healthy masculinity look like? What's that look like for young boys, having strong male role models and whatnot? I stumbled across him on social media a while back, and I was impressed with his work, what he does for young boys, his messaging. I actually just bought his book recently, The Man, the Moment Demands. So far, it's very good. It's very direct, very simple, very straightforward. Lots of applicable steps on how to just be a better man in the world. He's gotten quite a bit of attention from celebrities. There are people, very famous people, who are following his work. He's been on a lot of major podcasts. He's been on the Joe Rogan Experience. So he's well known and becoming more well known for the work that he is doing. Now, I really, really appreciated what I saw in terms of cultivation. So, and when I say cultivation in the Eastern arts, cultivation of any kind, the cultivation of skill, the cultivation of self, the cultivation of understanding your place in the cosmos, cultivation of any kind it's favorable. It's something that's very much encouraged in Eastern thought and philosophy. So his method of cultivation in terms of what he's doing for men, what he's doing for young boys, and the heart that he has behind his messaging is powerful. Watching his videos, watching him work with young boys has brought me to tears a few times, and I'm moved by what he's doing. I really have a lot of admiration for his work. So that being said, let's talk about his face and the features that I'm seeing that are congruent with his life terrain. So again, just for general review, for those of you who don't know, face reading stipulates the theory behind this methodology says that if you carry a feature, if you're carrying these things, you want to pay attention to what that symbolic meaning is, because part of how we nourish our life force, how we live a long time, is by fulfilling the metrics that our face carries. Your face is sort of a roadmap for your life terrain. So, all of that being said, one of the things that I noticed about Jason Wilson when I was looking at his face, for one, was the length of his face. This is a shape that we see a lot in my face reading videos, and there's a shape for each of the 5 elements, but that long rectangular shape, and you could definitely argue sort of an oval shape as well. And when he has no facial hair, I was able to find this one picture here when you see him, his face is not as rectangular. There's a bit more of an oval energy, which runs a bit more water. But we have to pay attention to this shaping, and we do want to pay attention to how men, if they're able to grow facial hair, how they actually shape their face, because a beard dramatically changes the shaping of the face. And we want to think that facial hair, while not defining the way bone structure is or the shape of a feature per se, a beard will change the shape and the countenance and the presence of the face. And we have cultural references to beards, people that carry wisdom, especially as we get gray in the beard. My late teacher Lillian, used to call gray hairs wisdom hairs. So there's a lot of cultural context with having a beard as a man, but also it changes the shape. And with a beard, he becomes a lot more rectangular. And the thing we have to remember about facial hair, and when we do tattoos and all kinds of things that change our physical appearance, it's sort of like we're calling upon a subconscious marker or a subconscious drive or something that we are going to be using a bit more in his work, using the wood element. Now, the wood element relates to drive, vigor, aggression, tenacity, going after things, but it also relates to compassion and kindness. And so when we see a long rectangular face and the shaping that is augmented and made a bit more noticeable through a beard, it's also like Jason Wilson to a degree. The subconscious part of him, or the conscious maybe, is pulling upon those wood metrics. And given what he's doing, teaching martial arts, and you can definitely make the correlation because martial arts is a wood element practice. So different professions fall into the different elemental categories, but this is something to think about. So he's got this long rectangular shape. The archetypal symbol for the rectangle and for the wood element, the archetypal military figure is the general. The general is who tells you what to do, where to go, when to do it, how to do it. We deploy at dawn, we attack this post, and we regroup at this hour, at this place, at this time. That's all the general energy. Now, if you watch his videos, anything he's doing with children, you'll see him really take on that role beautifully. He's pretty masterful in terms of how he does it. But there's also this thread when we see that wood energy that's very strong. The person has the capacity to sort of explore both sides of that element. Anger, aggression, and tenacity can be positive and negative, but it can also can kind of run amok. And then you have the other side, compassion and kindness. He's exploring both metrics. And if you listen to his backstory when he talks about his history and his life and the things that he battled, he's dabbled in all of these things. And most humans do, but your face and your facial features basically say if you have these things, you're probably going to be dialoguing with these things a bit more this go round in this life. So I want to play a clip here, and this is a really good clip. I have two clips that I'll show, but the first one is him working with a kid, and I want you just to notice the general energy coming out as he talks to this young boy, and then also the compassion and kindness that goes with it. This is something very indicative of the wood element, which he's embodying very well, and in turn nourishing his life force. So go ahead and give this video a viewing here.
He mad because he got out.
You didn't like losing in front of Dad?
I'm mad for Dad to come here. Dad. So unlike me, I ain't have my father around when I was feeling like this.
So I told you, I didn't grow up with my dad, bro. I'm here for you. I love you. And I'm proud of you, bro.
Good beanies, good. Go. Strong. Grab strong, strong, strong. Sheba. Tesa. That's a good job. If it's a goal, dream, sometimes it slip away. Grab it back. Grab it back. Grab it back. You got it? Proud of you. Appreciate it. Proud of you. Stuff makes me emotional. Wow. It ain't discipline, man. It's love.
So it's very evident. This is what I would call the healthy expression of the wood element. Someone who is firm, someone who is direct, but also couched in that and encapsulated in that is this compassion and kindness. So it's very good to see in terms of what his face is carrying and what he's actually living. I also want to mention a point here on face reading that is my advisement for people that are wanting to face read and wanting to learn and wanting to study about this. And if you're watching my videos, you're doing that. The thing to remember is that face reading, understanding it, learning it, it's a two-way street. Most methodologies will tell you, here's the book, here's the teacher, me or someone else who's sharing information with you, and it says, you know, the book says this about you, it says this thing, and therefore that's what you carry. And people sort of look to the teacher or they look to the theoretical text for meaning, and that's where it stops. And what I encourage people to do is go just the opposite. One of the best ways to learn face reading is to reverse that mechanism and say, okay, here's a guy who's living his purpose. Here's a man who's genuinely helping young boys, helping men become better men. You can see what he's doing in his daily living in terms of his mission and his purpose. And when a person is doing that well, instead of going to the book and saying, well, these features mean that, look at people's faces who are living those rhythms and then try to find the connection from the theory. Let them be the teacher. So look at someone's face and say, boy, he's got all these things. Take inventory of that person's features. Look at them. Look at the shaping. Look at the countenance of the eyes. Look at their face. Try to assess the Shen, and then use that as a guiding metric in other people. So one of the best ways that you can continue to learn, especially in the absence of someone like me who's going to, if I was teaching you every day, that's very different. But if you are learning on your own, really understand that face reading is a two-way street. You can learn from people by watching their faces, seeing what they're doing, and then making associations based off of that. And then, yeah, cross-reference with theory. But just a side note in terms of learning about this. Now, another thing I noticed, just touching back on that wood metric, is he's got strong eyebrows. We notice the wood metrics show up in the brow bone, the eyebrows, and the jawline. And his jawline is not excessively, cut or strong, but he's got strong eyebrows. So again, just all pointing to these wood metrics. Now, I also want to talk about his mouth. So the mouth is an earth element feature, and it relates to house and home. It relates to family. It relates to community. It also relates to the five senses and the processing of the five senses. So in reading his book, and I'm, just in the beginning stages of that book, but when you talk about people and feelings and processing, one of his big tenets, one of the big things that he focuses on for men is identifying like surface emotions and then the emotions that are the root system, what's underneath. And he's got a really beautiful and elegant way of talking about these things in a very simple and direct way. But a lot of his work is about decompressing the emotions, feeling, using your senses, having spatial awareness in terms of martial arts, processing in that way. And it's really beautiful to see, because when we see a strong mouth, okay, the mouth, the more dominant the mouth is, full lower lip, full upper lip, or both lips are full, this is all going to point to all of these metrics that I just talked about. So in terms of what he's doing in his community, trying to keep families together, trying to provide a strong male, masculine figure for young boys, really pushing that message and showing people how important it is to process those emotions, all ties to that strong earth element dynamic that he carries. You can see it in the mouth. So the other video kind of points to this, and I want you to just watch this, and it shows how he helps this young man process his emotions.
Sometimes our boys are repressing not only their anger, but their bad experiences. And with Aubrey, he was taking his time walking out onto the mat. So I noticed after pushing him out to go further onto the mat and faster, it triggered like an intense emotional release. Instead of just letting that go, I wanted to dig deeper. And of course, because he wasn't used to anyone helping him process through his emotions, he kept saying, nothing's wrong, nothing's wrong. But then I started having him push me, and the tears kept coming out more and more. And then I realized it must have been a traumatic experience that push had triggered. When I allowed him the moment to just release what he was feeling and told him to focus now and be serious, he was able to overcome, what he was feeling in that moment, so that he could learn techniques that could help him survive if he's ever.
So again, the processing of emotions, using the five senses, all of these things are indicative of earth element metrics. And again, Jason Wilson is living these things. So, if he were my lifestyle client, I would be saying, first of all, beautiful work. I really, in my estimation, when they say people are doing, God's work, at least for me, this is the kind of thing that really gets my attention. I'm like, yeah, this is God's work. If you believe in God, really helping humanity, and he's doing a wonderful job. But all of those things, again, he's living the things that his face carries, which means, we can all die of accidents. We can all have these things come down the pike that can take us out early. But in terms of living a long, natural life, he's fulfilling the gifts he's carrying based off of the facial features. Like those things are congruent. And the more those are congruent, the longer we live and the more our life force is nourished. The last thing I want to talk about is the countenance of his face. So in his younger days, you can see in this picture here, his Shen, the spirit, okay, the anima that comes out of the face, the immaterial light that we feel when someone smiles, that's all the Shen, or the spirit dynamics of a person. His Shen was quite different, and this is what's supposed to happen. You should not have the same Shen or spirit countenance on the face that you do in your 20s and 30s when you're 50 or 60. You should see some evolution, and he's really got it. There is a penetrating gaze. There's a more direct approach. There's something that has happened in his Shen, and what that points to, when you see that shift in the Shen, that means there's been evolution at the soul level. And I promise you, if you're doing the kind of work that he is doing, that is going to happen. There's no getting around it, and you can see it. And this picture here is pretty blurry, so it's not the best picture, but it was hard to find pictures of him when he was younger. But again, you can see the evolution of the spirit. So people's features are going to shift as we age. And sometimes those shifts are going to be favorable in the context of face reading. Some are desired. Like, we're supposed to have that happen. We're supposed to have these things show up and they're good, healthy, auspicious markers. And other times we can see life force depletion. And the way his face is trending in terms of spiritual evolution is very good. I also know he's a God centered person and he's got a spiritual core. So all of these things are helpful, if you're going to navigate life. But these are the big things that I noticed about Jason Wilson. And I can't say enough good things about him. I really encourage anyone out there to read his books. And I'm going to continue to read his other books, but The Man, The Moment Demands so far is incredibly good. And I suggest people read it, man or woman, check it out. And also follow him on Instagram, Mr. Jason Wilson. He's worth following. All right, Joel, take care.